Citizen Kane, the greatest movie of all time.
And always will be.
Citizen Kane follows the story of Charles, or Charlie Foster Kane, played by the film's own writer and director Orson Welles himself, who quickly says Rosebud before dying. Short film.
That's all I'm interested in.
A reporter seeks answers in regards to his strange final word, and then we flash back and forth through time before Tarantino made it cool.
Because it's so much fun, Jan! Get it!
We see him interviewing family and friends, showing incredible events that happened during his life. Kane was quickly sent away from his parents at a young age to get a better education after a gold mine was discovered on his parents' property.
Why aren't you coming with us, Mom?
We have to stay here, Charles.
You're going to live with Mr. Thatcher from now on, Charlie.
He's going to groom you to be his sex slave, Charles.
It's also my pleasure.
He then grew up to become a journalist who manipulated the truth in order to sell papers. Just like any news outlet then, really. Then he got power hungry, ran for office but lost after an affair he was having was leaked, and then he forced his second wife to pursue an opera career for some reason despite sucking, leading to a suicide attempt until she finally leaves the abusive douchebag and he is left with absolutely nothing whatsoever. You know, a happy film.
Never mind, Charlie.
Oh, and it's revealed that Rosebud was the name on the sled that he was playing on the day that he was taken away from his parents.
Thank you.
Hollywood had actually shown interest in Orson Welles as early as 1936, where he turned down 3 scripts from Warner Brothers, and a year later he turned down offers, one of which was a role in Wuthering Heights. Although the possibility of making huge amounts of money in Hollywood greatly attracted him, he was still totally, hopelessly, insanely in love with the theatre, and it is there that he had every intention of remaining to make his mark.
You're right, Mr. Thatcher. I did lose $1 million last year. I expect to lose $1 million this year.
But then this film will become the greatest ever and will be sorted for life.
Isn't it wonderful?
After CBS aired a War of the Worlds broadcast on Welles' own show, The Mercury Theatre on the Air, he was convinced to go over to Hollywood with a really generous contract. The studio, RKO Pictures, believing that he would attract mass attention. Fortunately, this was absolute perfect timing because Welles hit a financial slump after his 2 plays, Five Kings and The Green Goddess, were complete disasters. Originally, he just wanted to spend 3 months in Hollywood to pay off his debts and fund his next season, but upon arriving on July the 20th, 1939, he called the movie studio the greatest electric train set a boy could ever have.
I was just joking.
The contract given, which is now historically famous in the world of film, meant Orson Welles would act in, direct, produce, and write 2 feature films, and he also had complete artistic control of both movies as long as the budget did not exceed $500,000. The studio could not use any footage until Welles showed it to them himself, and they could make no cuts without his permission either. So basically, they were his bitch.
You better go down and tell them.
He could develop the story himself without any interference, hand-pick his own cast and crew, and have the rights to the final cut. It was a dream come true. However, the first 5 months were just spent trying to get the project underway, but failing. They were laying bets over on the RKO lot that the Orson Welles deal would end up without Orson ever even doing a picture there. The first picture was to be Heart of the Darkness.
Fear no darkness!
Shot entirely in first person with a handheld camera, a concept completely alien at the time, but it never reached production as it cost 50 grand too much. Welles would then begin working on what is supposedly the greatest movie of all time, Citizen Kane.
With great difficulty.
In February of 1940, Welles finished 300 pages of notes for the script, passing it to Herman J. Mankiewicz to make the first draft screenplay with John Houseman supervising. They were basing the lead character on the life of William Randolph Hearst, who he knew and hated in real life, but other elements were based on Welles' own experiences and others were just completely made up out of the blue. I left him on his own finally because we'd started to waste too much time haggling.
What?
Yeah.
This bloke won't haggle. Won't haggle?
So after mutual agreements on storyline and character, Mank went off with Houseman and did his version, while I stayed in Hollywood and wrote mine. Orson combined the ideas, rearranging them, adding scenes of his own, but he was constantly accused of underplaying just how much Mankiewicz contributed to the script. At the end, naturally, I was the one making the picture. After all, who had to make the decisions? I used what I wanted of Mank's, and rightly or wrongly, I kept what I liked of my own.
I'm not sorry.
In fact, in that same contract, it even stated that Mankiewicz would go uncredited, which he was okay with until the film was about to be released. He suddenly fired back at Orson Welles demanding to be credited, even threatening to, ironically, get the papers involved, and even possibly going to the Screenwriters Guild to claim full credit for writing the entire screenplay himself. I don't think he knows how contracts work.
What?
After a long process, it was resolved and he received credit. It's always been disputed though just who wrote how much of the screenplay, the case being revived in 1971 and then again in 78. After reviewing all 7 drafts of the script, film scholar Robert L. Carringer stated, the full evidence reveals that Wells' contribution to the Citizen Kane script was not only substantial but definitive. To be fair, Wells did credit Mankiewicz for coming up with the now famous Rosebud angle. Sort of. I mean, some claim it was the name of Mankiewicz's bike when he was a kid, others claim it was the name of Orson Welles' ex-girlfriend's dog, and I swear, I am not joking here. Some even claim it was the name William Randolph Hearst gave to his mistress Marion Davis's clitoris. I'm not joking. Cinematic Venom, ruining everybody's favourite movies one film fact at a time.
I thought maybe somebody ought to.
When it came down to casting, most of the actors were new to films, total unknowns. Wells insisted on them rehearsing beforehand, but surprisingly, this actually was not common practice at the time. He was about to change the course of film history forever. He trained us for films at the same time that he was training himself. Orson believed in good acting, and he realised that rehearsals were needed to get the most from his actors. That was something new in Hollywood. Nobody seemed interested in bringing in a group to rehearse before scenes were shot, but Orson knew it was necessary, and we rehearsed every sequence before it was filmed. When it came down to shooting, a film textbook was compiled for Orson Welles to study, but he was basically self-taught, just studying films like The Cabernet of Dr. Caligari and Stagecoach, which he admitted he watched 40 times.
Does he have to?
As it turned out, the first day I ever walked onto a set was my first day as a director. I'd learned whatever I knew in the projection room from John Ford. After dinner, every night for about a month, I'd run Stagecoach, often with some different technician or department head from the studio, and ask questions. How was this done? Why was this done? It was like going to school. Filming began on June the 29th, 1940, but that dastardly director tricked the studio executives, making them believe this day was actually spent on just camera tests, when in actuality he was shooting the movie early so they could get a head start. It wasn't until the end of July, the next month, when RKO greenlit the picture to officially begin production, despite Wells having already started shooting weeks earlier. Clever bastard.
I guess he's fixing it up.
He saved money by having so many rehearsals early that it'd need less takes during the actual filming period. Many shoots would span up to 18 hours a day, starting at 4 AM, with Orson's makeup taking possibly 4 or so hours just to apply. The contacts he had to wear were incredibly painful, denting his vision, causing him to accidentally hurt himself when he wrecked the room, which he did in one take, by the way, making his hands bleed. But I just have to say, this is unintentionally hilarious. No, I'm sorry, okay? This film is great and Orson Welles' acting is great, but for these few seconds, he looks like some fat greedy kid trying to get a chocolate bar. Filming wrapped up on October the 24th, 1940, but reshoots lasted until November 30th that same year. Despite his contract and the original agreement, he ended up spending $839,727. Oops.
Oops.
The trailer was quite unique in the sense that none of the actual movie was shown, which was so new at the time. Just a documentary-like look at the film's production, the only behind-the-scenes footage that ever existed of this picture. For a film that's so unique, different, original, and yet so highly praised, historic, and magnificent, many asked Orson Welles what gave him the confidence for his first film to try something so radically out of the norm. He replied, ignorance, ignorance, sheer ignorance. You know there's no confidence to equal. It's only when you know something about a profession, I think, that you're timid or careful.
I knew it all the time.
The best way to understand Citizen Kane is to stop worshipping it as a triumph of technique. The film did not invent any of its famous techniques such as deep focus cinematography, shots of the ceiling, chiaroscuro lighting and temporal jump cuts. Many of these stylistics had been used in German expressionist films of the 1920s such as The Cabernet of Dr. Caligari, but Citizen Kane did put them all together for the first time and perfected the medium in one single film. Even if Welles did not invent the cinematic devices employed in Citizen Kane, one should nevertheless credit him with the invention of their meaning. While they waited for the musical score to be composed, a rough cut of the film was previewed on January the 3rd, 1941, where most enjoyed it, but columnist Hedda Hopper called it a vicious and irresponsible attack on a great man, slating its corny writing and old-fashioned photography. Well, I bet she feels silly now.
I guess that'll show you.
Controversy sparked up further when William Randolph Hearst learned that the film was in part about him, leading to RKO Pictures receiving a lawsuit if they released the movie. Hearst made up accusations of Orson Welles being a communist to try and prevent its release further, and it was even threatened, eerily similar to the film's events, with the exposure of his love with actress Dolores Del Rio, who wanted this kept secret until her divorce was final. Orson publicly denied that this film was actually about him, but RKO was even given $805,000 just to destroy all copies of the movie. Ouch!
No thanks.
Despite this, it was announced on January the 21st that this picture would still be released, though more obvious references to Hearst were removed or softened, scraping 3 minutes off the running time, and the case was settled. But to further prove he's nothing like Kane in the film whatsoever, Hearst banned every newspaper and station from reviewing or even mentioning the film, and even banned movie theatres from playing it. It wasn't that successful financially, and most of that blame was sent to Hearst himself for his boycotting and threats towards it. It was even to the point, and I swear to God, I wish I was joking here, Orson Welles was at a lecture when a police officer approached him at a restaurant and advised him to not go back to his hotel room. Hearst had allegedly hid a 14-year-old girl in his closet with 2 photographers waiting for him to walk in so they could frame him publicly. Welles himself denied this being from Hearst, but rather someone working for him.
It was his idea.
They did, however, meet face to face in an elevator where Welles offered him to come and watch the film, but Hearst refused. In response, Orson said Charles Foster Kane would have accepted. Oh, ban?
I can't accept it.
However, in 2012, Hearst's estate eventually agreed to screen the picture, finally breaking the ban. I mean, he did die 61 years before that, but still.
That man was the biggest darn fool I ever met.
Radio City Music Hall refused to premiere Citizen Kane, but that may have been because of a threat to run a defamatory story about the grandfather of an RKO stockholder. Jesus Christ! Many others refused to show it until Welles threatened to sue RKO himself if they did not release it, which finally happened on May the 1st, 1941. Sadly, the venue was almost empty, though it did better in larger cities, but due to Hearst being a dickweasel, the movie lost around 160 grand on its first run, only earning $23,878 in its first week.
I think I did pretty well under the circumstances.
It's one of the most interesting and technically superior films that has ever come out of a Hollywood studio. It's staggering and belongs at once among the greatest screen achievements. It has found important new techniques in picture making and storytelling. Few movies have ever come from Hollywood with such powerful narrative, such original technique, such exciting photography. The film's style is like fresh air. Something new has come to the movie world at last. It's the best picture I've ever seen, and Orson Welles is the best actor in the history of acting. Well, except for this.
That's a mistake that will be corrected one of these days.
It comes close to being the most sensational film ever made in Hollywood. Count on Mr. Welles, he doesn't do things by halves. Upon the screen, he discovered an area large enough for his expansive whims to have free play. And the consequence is that he has made a picture of tremendous and overpowering scope, not in physical extent so much as in its rapid and graphic rotation of thoughts. Mr. Welles has put up on the screen a motion picture that really moves. It's the most exciting film that has come out of Hollywood in 25 years. The film style was made with the ease and boldness and resource of one who controls and is not controlled by his medium. However, some people gotta poop on the parade.
Impossible!
It's the boldest freehand stroke in major screen production since Griffith and Bitzer were running wild to unshackle the camera, but it's a complete retrogression in film technique. It holds no great place in film history. The film is a labyrinth with no centre. Its legacy, though, will be a film whose historical value is undeniable, but which no one cares to see again. It's the most well-intentioned, muddled, amateurish thing one expects from highbrows. It's a quite good film which tries to run the psychological essay in harness with your detective thriller, and it doesn't quite succeed. It's a cold picture, unemotional, a puzzle rather than a drama. Yeah, well, you eat dog shit for breakfast.
We never lost as much as we made.
Citizen Kane received the New York Film Critics Circle Award for Best Picture. The National Board of Review picked it as the best of 1941, and it was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, but it only walked away with Best Original Screenplay. Amazingly, at the Oscar ceremony, it was heavily booed every single time the film's title was simply spoken for a nomination. Jesus Christ, how things change!
Oh no, that's all gone.
Despite its fame today though, originally it seemed to vanish into nothingness and became completely forgotten. However, it was brought back into the focus of film in the mid-50s. Around the same time Hearst died, what a coincidence! Hearst was in a hearse.
You make a joke out of everything.
It appeared frequently on television and began to gain quite a huge following, often dubbed as the greatest film ever made. Sight and Sound produced a top 10 list of the greatest films ever coming out every decade starting in 1952. It came second place that year, but then in 62 hit first and retained that spot every single decade until 2012 when Vertigo finally replaced it. Damn!
I think we enjoyed ourselves.
I think Citizen Kane is the greatest film ever made, but people don't always ask about the greatest film, they ask what's your favourite movie. Again, I always answer Citizen Kane. In 2007, the American Film Institute picked as the 17th most memorable movie quote ever, which Premiere listed as third, while
Old age. The only disease, Mr. Thompson, that you don't look forward to being cured of.
Was 90th. It was the favourite film of the late great Charlton Heston and even current President of the United States, Donald Trump, despite clearly not understanding it.
You may be right.
I mean, he says that Kane reminds him a lot of himself. I mean, I can see that, an arrogant, greedy, self-centered prick who ran for office and only loves himself. But then he ends up pushing people away, losing everything around him and learning how karma works. But you know what Trump's great advice for Kane was?
No, if you could give Charles Foster Kane advice, what would you say to him?
Get yourself a different woman.
Yeah, he runs a country.
A lot of people don't really understand the significance of it. I'm not sure if anybody understands the significance.
We do know what it means. It appears at the end of the film. The film that you say is your favourite film, you jackass! I just like how he tries to talk about the symbolism too and trying to understand what it represents, despite the fact that, no, Donald, we all know the significance, you fucking moron.
The word rosebud, for whatever reason, has captivated moviegoers and movie watchers for so many years, and to this day is perhaps the single word. And perhaps if they came up with another word that meant the same thing, it wouldn't have worked. But rosebud works.
What the hell is he even talking about?
Rosebud works.
And if Kane is like you, doesn't that mean you should lose your money, wife, job, and everything and be completely alone?
I don't propose to have myself made ridiculous.
So, is Citizen Kane as good as everybody says? Oh yeah. Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you? Oh, I always get comments all the time. You didn't like Fury Road. You only bitch about loved films to get views. Yeah, even though you praise The Godfather, you praise The Wizard of Oz, you praise Die Hard, but because I don't like Lord of the Rings, because I don't like Fury Road, because I don't like Mad Max, oh, I only bash on them to get views. Yeah, come at me, right? Love Shawshank, love Forrest Gump, and I fucking love Citizen Kane. Suck a dick. Maybe it's just because I got a different opinion, right? Out of 49 episodes, how many of us have slated? Less than 10? So grow the fuck up! Citizen Kane is amazing.
I absolutely adore you.
Yeah, I can't fault this movie for much at all. I mean, I truly believe Citizen Kane is completely worthy of every one of its accolades and definitely deserves to be called one of the greatest films ever made. The direction is astounding, and although some of the films may have used these techniques first, Orson Welles brought it to the public eye and popularized it way more than its predecessors. Welles, specifically for the sake of the film's story, had the camera always look up at Kane and his best friend Jedediah whilst looking down at others. Clever, but furthermore, most of his shots are so entrancing he uses every inch of the frame to show something of worth. He keeps everything in focus at the same time, using the background and foreground simultaneously to show something of importance. They look great and so well planned out. He even uses the reflection of windows or mirrors, and it's so spectacular to look at.
Yes.
Here, this is actually a still photograph of the audience with holes poked into it, with lights being shone through. Who else would have thought to do something like that? And it goes pretty much unnoticed. Is that convincing? You can tell the amount of rehearsals that took place with the long takes, and considering this was the 40s, this was so daring, but it really pays off. The comedy is also great, especially this old guy, Mr. Carter. He is hilarious.
Welcome to the Inquirer, Mr. Kane. I'm Herbert Carter, the editor-in-chief.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, but this is Mr. Leland.
How do you do, Mr. Leland?
How do you do, Mr. Carter?
Carter?
Yes?
Mr. Carter.
How do you do?
Mr. Carter.
Yes, how do you do?
Mr. Carter.
Yes, Mr. Bernstein.
Mr. Carter.
Kane.
It's a film where you really can't tell which way it's going to go. The first time we really spend time with Kane, you like him. He's actually really cool and really easygoing.
I felt like a kid in front of a candy store. Well, tonight, 6 years later, I got my candy. All of it.
He even gets a fucking song about how awesome he is. Is he related to Chuck Norris? But as the film progresses, he slowly transitions into a douchebag, and you really don't expect it. Many people throughout the film also give Kane these heartfelt lectures, and it's so true and so well written, even quite inspiring.
He had a generous mind. I don't suppose anybody ever had so many opinions. But he never believed in anything except Charlie Kane. He never had a conviction except Charlie Kane in his life.
You don't care about anything except you. You just want to persuade people that you love them so much that they ought to love you back. Only you want love on your own terms.
You don't love me. You want me to love you. Sure. I'm Charles Foster Kane. Whatever you want, just name it and it's yours. But you gotta love me.
Wells, much like most geniuses, was a little hard to work with, however. He treated actress Dorothy Comingore, who played his wife Susan, like complete shit so she could use that anger and distress on the screen for the sake of the movie's realism. Wow, what a nice guy! Is he related to Stanley Kubrick as well?
No.
However, he couldn't have been too bad because this guy playing drunk had a genuine blooper on set. It wasn't planned, but they both stayed in character and saved it. Orson loved it so much, he kept it in.
Well, you said yourself you were looking for someone to do dramatic criticism. I am drunk.
However, he actually hated the whole Rosebud twist ending. Yeah, the most famous line of the movie and one of the most famous ever, and he hated it, calling it a fraud. But it was your film that you had complete control over. So why'd you keep it in?
That's the way they want it. The people have made that choice.
The thing is, when Kane says Rosebud, nobody is actually in the room at the time, so it's often viewed as a massive plot hole. How can anybody know it was his last word when no one was there? The nurse doesn't run in until after he said it and dies. Some have defended this, saying during an interview somebody claims he heard Kane say it another time, but this still doesn't debunk how everyone knew it was his last word. This is such a blatant plot hole in the greatest movie of all time that people brought it to Orson Welles' attention. He just stared at them for a long time, obviously stumped, before replying, "Don't you ever tell anyone of this." So he basically admitted that he had a giant plot hole that he just couldn't talk his way out of. I don't even understand. I mean, it could have easily been saved by just having her be in the room when he says it and dies. The main premise of the film, and it makes no sense.
I can remember absolutely everything, young man.
His acting is incredible though, with the exception of those few seconds from earlier. When his wife leaves him, the subtlety and seemingly lost and awkward expression in his face is mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'm angry, I guess. Roar, roar.
I mean, how can anyone call this film unemotional? Despite everything he's done, you spend 2 hours watching a man completely lose his entire life, and you're gonna say it's unemotional?
Goodbye, Charlie.
Cheer up, Charlie. Give me a smile.
But dare I mock anything else? Is there anything else in the greatest movie of all time that I can make fun of? Yeah.
Have you gone completely crazy?
Listen to the narrator. His voice stays exactly the same tone and pitch for everything he says.
It's humble beginnings in this ramshackle building, a dying daily. Kane's empire in its glory.
I went for a run this morning. I was absolutely fucking shattered afterwards. I saw a nice woman with big boobs. They bounced as she ran. He even does it when he's saying really sad news.
Emily Norton, who left him in 1916, died 1918 in a motor accident with their son.
I saw a baby get hit by a train this morning. I stopped to have a look, but blood splattered all over my face. It was rather sad, but I took the time to Instagram that shit. Look how angry this dude gets at something so minuscule.
One item on your list intrigues me, the New York Inquirer. A little newspaper I understand we acquired in a foreclosure proceeding. Please don't sell it. I'm coming back to America to take charge. I think it would be fun to run a newspaper. I think it would be fun to run a newspaper.
What a fucking madman! Fucking bastard! He's going to enjoy running a newspaper! Man, someone get him on his leash. Someone strap him down. He is getting out of hand.
What you need is to get your mind off it.
So here, this guy suggests that Rosebud may have just been a girl that Kane used to date. When suggested that no guy would ever go decades without ever talking about this girl before suddenly mentioning her again on his deathbed, he comes up with this.
A fella will remember a lot of things you wouldn't think he'd remember. You take me. One day back in 1896, I was crossing over to Jersey on the ferry. And as we pulled out, there was another ferry pulling in. And on it, there was a girl waiting to get on. A white dress she had on. She was carrying a white parasol. And I only saw her for 1 second. She didn't see me at all. But I'll bet a month hasn't gone by since that I haven't thought of that girl.
No, that's called stalking. A girl you never spoke to, and then you think about it every month. This is why the sex offenders list was created.
No. I see the light.
Come on, Rob, you're not dying.
I don't think I'm gonna make it.
No, you can pull through. You stay away from that light. Come back to me. Just stay with me, man. I've got you, bro. Come on. No. No.
These are my last few moments on earth.
Well, if you have to go, do you have any last words before you do?
I do have. Just one thing. I do really need to say.
Okay.
Are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you ready? For my dying one?
I'm ready.
Okay. Here it is.
What is it? blonde woman I saw on a train one time. Oh my god, it was about 15 years ago, but she had really nice brown eyes, really nice bum, really nice boobs, absolutely gorgeous. She had a wedding ring on, but it didn't really bother me, and I just really wanted to take her home that night, but I didn't have the confidence to even talk to her. Now what the fuck could that mean?
Get yourself a different woman.
Hey! Hey, everybody! Looky out here!
Let's go to the window.
Was there any need for that line? Oh, let's go to the toilet. Let's flush the toilet. Let's go back to the review. Let's not wipe. Let's go back to the movie. Let's re-cue the music.
I'm drunk.
Kane's lips here aren't even moving when he speaks.
That's the kind of thing we are going to be interested in from now on.
Awesome work for such a perfectionist.
Do you know how long you kept me waiting last night while you went to the newspaper for 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
But there's still one notice to come. The dramatic.
Oh, you're so dramatic.
When he first meets his wife, she offers him some water to clean mud off himself, but she says it in the most slutty and seductive way ever.
Said if you wanted some hot water, could get you some.
I can also get you some tea.
You're not a professional magician, are you?
No, but I can make your virginity disappear.
You're awful funny, aren't you?
Here, he clearly has a fucking rapist look on his face. And towards the end, his wife's voice just gets so annoying. I mean, she's great for the first 90 minutes, but then, Jesus Christ!
I'm not going to stop it.
Right now.
You never gave me anything in your whole life.
Shut up! Like, shut up, you bitch! I'm surprised he didn't leave you!
Can't imagine how Mrs. Kane came to make such a foolish mistake.
Why does he call his own wife Mrs. Kane? I don't call my son Boar. Oh, also, this is absolutely hilarious.
You just tried to buy me into giving you something.
Susan!
Acting! But other than those two things I've made fun of, here's his only other bad delivery for the entire film.
Please don't go.
Stop, don't come back.
Seriously, he made
Breaking my heart.
sound more believable. Anyway, then there's... Jesus Christ, the fuck, Wells? Just blast my fucking eardrums.
Minding my own business, you mind yours.
The film has amazing sets and the musical choir is incredible. It sets a really eerie and uncomfortable tone with its tremendously dark imagery and equally ominous dark lighting, utilising wide-angle lenses to show off the gothic sets, which fits the rest of the film perfectly. This really is an inspirational piece, and it's easy to see why it's arguably the most influential movie to have ever hit the big screen. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more, I'm reviewing every film in the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die 2016 edition book, so make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with them and also turn on notifications to be alerted for each episode. You can also vote for which film to be reviewed next at the link in the description. What did you think of Citizen Kane? Let me know in the comments below and I will see you in the next video. See guys? Sometimes I can have an opinion that agrees with the mass public.
I'd say it had been made for you.